Hello out there, and a quick first look today at the Spyderco Police 4 Lightweight in FRN handle scales. And this is a new release, a new variation on a classic Spyderco model. And I want to be very upfront and clear that this is not at all to be considered a review. I just am showing this knife, giving you an idea of the specs and the size and the scale of it. For me, this is definitely not the knife for me. It actually isn't my knife. I'm just serving as a middleman, getting it to a buddy of mine. And as you can probably just see by the length of it and how high I have to keep it in the frame in order to have the whole thing in the picture, it's definitely far beyond what I would usually carry. But because of the price point and the materials and the way that it's manufactured, there is a pretty interesting conversation, I guess, to be had just about what this does for availability and makes this knife maybe a lot more accessible and better in some people's minds than previous incarnations. And that's why I want to talk about it today. But before we get too far into any of that, let's just go right over size and specs. So what we have overall, talking about the length, is right around 10 inches of total length from the tip to the very end of the knife here. So pretty darn long. When we're talking about the cutting edge, we are right at 4 inches there. And then in the closed position, let's get this lined up, we're looking at a little over 5.5 inches. So much more significant than the Endura, which for me is probably too long of a knife as well. Size comparison to a knife that I do carry and that I do like, you guessed it, Paramilitary 2. The PM2 has an overall length of about 8.25 inches, and for me that's about as long as I like to carry, and this knife certainly dwarfs it. But if we're looking at just being able to carry the knife in your pocket and you look at it from, let's say, just the handle, you can see that it's really not too long. And so while using the knife for me might be something that would be too much just with that overall length, when you look at these knives in the closed position versus each other, they're not all that different, and this knife won't carry too big in the pocket, I don't think. And when we're looking at the thickness of it as well, I mean, it's pretty comparable. I think the PM2 is actually a little bit thicker overall, and the height of the knife, so, and you can't really see that too well, but we're looking at like a little over 1.5 inches, about almost 1 3/4 inches from the top of the bridge here down to the bottom of the scales. And then with the police, it's comparable. So yeah, not too bulky, I would say, in pocket. So definitely a good option there if you're still looking for something that is super long, but you're going to be able to fit into the pocket. Now, what makes this knife special, at least in my estimation, is that the other police incarnations that I'm aware of, they've either been too heavy or too expensive, and never a mix of the two. And that's what this option brings us. Because the first police that I'm aware of, the Police 4 at least, was a stainless steel one in VG10, and that was pretty pretty agreeable with price, I guess, like around the $150 price point, maybe a little bit cheaper. I think 150, 160 was retail. But that knife was heavy. That was over 5 ounces, a little bit bulky. Obviously, it doesn't give you the stainless steel handle that Spyderco has. Doesn't necessarily give you the best grip that say an FRN or a G10 would. And then they came out with that G10 version that had K390 steel, and that knife was only a little bit heavier than this. And let's get this on the scale right now as I talk. That knife was only a little bit heavier than this, but it was like $200. And so you had just a pricey thing, you had a heavy thing, and this knife coming in at 4.22 ounces, the lightest of all of them, and also the most inexpensive at $107 is what I saw it at. So $107, I mean, not a bad deal. The blade steel is VG10. It is full flat ground. It is from Seki City, Japan. So if you're familiar with the handle scales of the Delica or the Endura, this is pretty much identical in terms of design and concept. So we do have that. And I know there are people who don't love VG10. Personally, for EDC, I think it's just fine to use it, break down boxes, whatever I need to do. VG10 is good. It touches up pretty well. It's very corrosion resistant. So I'm not one of those VG10 haters, though I do understand, you know, the desire for nicer things. But for this knife and for what I imagine the concept is, seeing that it's the police, you know, and it has this tactical feel, being super long, maybe meant more for something like that than just general EDC. I think if you're using this in a tactical setting, like, does the steel really matter? Do you need the nicest steel in order to thrust and self-defense? I don't think so. So I think VG10 is a great option. I think that if you know, you're anyone on a budget, but especially someone like in law enforcement, this would be a great option at a cheaper price than it's ever been available for. So definitely a good move by Spyderco to hit the market in this area. One last thing I want to talk about is the clip. From an EDC standpoint, I don't really care for this clip on this model, just because of, I mean, I do like on larger knives a little bit of real estate, but this is just maybe borderline too much. I don't know exactly what they would do or what they could do with this model and the clip, but yeah, not really my thing. It is reversible for position, so I mean, that's definitely a good thing. And depending on how you're going to use it and carry it, you know, you might not even be putting it in just a regular pocket or clipping it to a pocket, so that might not be a big deal at all, just depending on how this gets applied. Overall, if you're someone who likes carrying a large knife and you want something that's sort of like a Spyderco competitor with cold steel, then maybe this is the one for you. I think at least it makes it part of the conversation, becoming more affordable and lighter. You know, because personally, I'm not necessarily a big fan of those Seki City stainless steel versions at all. I've handled a few of them, just not really my thing. And so this is just a smart and honestly sort of like a common sense kind of option to go with for Spyderco to make this available for us. So let me know your thoughts on it, guys. Any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. Would you EDC a knife of this size, or would you just need it for a like specific purpose, as in like your job, if you're in military, law enforcement, that sort of thing? Let me know your thoughts, all right? And I'll talk with you soon. Thanks for watching and take care. Have a good one.